And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 24. I'm TJ.
And I'm Kent.
And tonight we have a very special guest with us, Cory Byers. He is a close friend of both Kent and myself, as well as a fellow Riton Pro staff member. While we, of course, as if you guys follow us on social media, you know that Kent and I just recently went through the Red Dot Fundamentals class with the Modern Samurai Project. Stay tuned for next week where Kent and I are going to discuss that event, that class that we went through, all the ups and downs of it, the growing pains that we all experienced, and frankly, spoiler alert, it was fantastic. But you're sure to learn and enjoy something from it. But with that, tonight's discussion is a little bit more somber, a little bit more serious than what we typically do. Tonight, we're going to be discussing mental health, and as it pertains to many of the issues that we in the gun community find ourselves. Now, Cory, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody about yourself and where you have, what credentials or background you might have on this subject matter?
First of all, thank you guys for having me this evening. It's been quite a while since I've done one of these. So I really appreciate
Cory,
and I muted myself somehow. But thank you again for you guys having me, and it's been a little bit. But I am a senior psychology major, and I'm getting ready to graduate with my bachelor's degree in psychology with a minor in criminal justice. My biggest areas of influence in the mental health community revolve around suicide prevention and just your standard mental health care. My stepmom lost her life to suicide in 2016. So I've been a very major suicide prevention advocate, and I've been in the gun community for quite some time. And it's really just kind of led me to be on, the right leaning side of things, where most of the people in my field are on the left leaning side of things. So I've gotten into quite a big, I guess they debate about gun laws and gun regulations and red flag laws and things like that. So my take on it is very different compared to a lot of other people in my field. So is there anything in particular that you guys would like to know?
Well, I think the first question is, and just so we can add some context and a little bit more clarity into your field of study. So you're not just like many psychology majors out there. You are actually pursuing a master's program in this field. Is that correct?
I am graduating with my bachelor's degree in just a couple of months, and I am getting ready to go into a master's program for mental health counseling. Or a doctorate program to become a clinical psychologist. Whether that happens now or later, eventually, I plan on having that title, I hope.
Outstanding. So just one more time on the clarity thing. You have been studying and actively involved in the academic research in this field, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right, perfect. So folks, just so you all are aware, we have not, neither Kent nor I have had any in-depth conversations with Cory about the topics that we're going to discuss tonight. So this is going to be a very organic and normal conversation, right? So we're just going to kind of let things flow. This is not pre-canned or scripted, as is most of the shows that we do on this podcast. So if you have questions, as always, we will be curating the live chat. So if you have any questions for Cory or anybody else here on the show, please feel free to send them. But Kent, let's let you take it away, man, because I know you've already got like some questions brewing in the back of that beautiful brain of yours.
There's a lot of room up there for questions. I'll tell you what, there's not much in between. So Cory, thanks for being on, man. We miss you.
Thank you.
People, one of these days we'll do a show where we tell people the origin story of how TJ and I got together and all that. And Cory, you're no small part of it. So it's cool to have you on here.
Thank you.
As a subject matter expert. And TJ was super clear about that. But just, again, for clarity, this is not three redneck dudes speculating. This is three redneck dudes, one of whom has serious academic credentials to back up his opinions. So our whole point in having Cory have you come on, Bud, is I know what I think. I really want to know what you think when it comes to two types of people. The one being the person that we're trying to prevent from harming themselves, be it with a firearm or be it without, and then the other being the person who we are trying to prevent from harming us or our family or our loved ones or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They're different types of people, and from the training aspect of things, we have our solutions to stop them physically. But it'd be awful nice if we could get there and be there for those people before they have those life crises and before we have to apply. This has been coming out of my mouth for like 4 weeks. I don't know where it came from, but before we have to apply ballistic solutions.
Of course.
I don't want to have to shoot anybody, honestly. So
nobody really, wants to do that.
Of course not.
It's one of those things. It's a very serious matter. In one of my classes that I took last semester, it was actually one of my criminal justice methods classes, and he wanted us to write a prospectus. Basically, it's coming up with a topic, an idea, along with literature reviews and how you would go about doing your research. So I didn't actually perform research per se, but I did look at articles and things like that and was finding out things to aid in my research. And my topic was very interesting. It was on mass shootings. And we can all sit here and say, what is a mass shooting? Mass shootings can be anywhere from a social event, a night bar, a school. It doesn't matter. Mass shooting can seem to be a very broad topic. Generally, when you hear the term, mass shooting, that can be anything from 2 to 3 casualties. Or one of the things that I was looking at, or that I thought about looking at, was the motivation of the person committing the act. One of the things that I looked at in my research articles that I was looking through was that there's very limited amount of articles that you can, at least that I was finding. And motivation can range from a lot of different things. Motivation between bullying, between shyness, between revenge, just regular standard form of aggression. I was looking at things that could even jump motivation into video games and having like a leader, kind of like a scoreboard or a leaderboard of who has the most kills. This person had the most kills in 2016. It's my turn. I want the most kills. I'm going to do this. And so on and so forth. And then you have the people that want to be like, hey, this is how I can get my fame. But the only kind of problem that I can really see with that, and having limited amount of information and data, is that most of the individuals that might even commit this crime generally don't live to make it to prison. You have your people like your Adam Lanzas, your Las Vegas shooter, and people like that, that don't make it to really find out an actual motivation driven behind that. So then you kind of start to look at more or less the backstory of the person leading up before the event took place. So my thing was more along the lines of the motivation. So if that would be the case, you're looking at the motivation driven behind the backstory that they're investigating at the time of the accident, since most of them don't make it past that point.
So since you started on mass shooters, I'll go down the rabbit hole of the person who's going to harm other people first.
Okay.
What do you think So you want to research their motivations. What types of research, what kinds of things do you think the mental health community, either number one, are y'all doing some stuff we don't know? Number two, what kinds of stuff could the mental health community professionals be doing to seek and find these people before they create these acts? You know, is there a certain pattern of social behavior that we can pretty well predict? Is there a psychological profile? Is there some sort of a?
I think that kind of like people that have suicidal thoughts and suicidal ideations, there's always those, those risks and warning signs that you can see, whether it's someone that's openly talking about something, or their actual like behavior. They're not being social like they used to be. You can tell a lot by someone's body language and the behavior that where they were to where they are now, and how it's different. So something's going on at that point. And just like someone like I would run into when I talk about suicide prevention, you're looking for those warning signs. So I think the things to look for is being able to really study these individuals that have done this in the past. If we have information on it, that we can line out patterns of behavior that coincide with each other to be able to kind of, I guess, pinpoint more or less. But that's coming from my standpoint. I haven't really seen anything coming out of the mental health community, or at least that I know. I haven't done a whole lot of backstory against it. Like I said, it was just kind of an interesting topic that was just kind of like, well, if you're going to do the research, what would it be and how would you do it? So that's what I came up with. But that's the start that I would have. It's kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to put a plug on Mindhunters here, the show Mindhunters on Netflix, how those guys are going through and interviewing serial killers in order to pinpoint the behaviors and the characteristics of those individuals to catch new serial killers early on when they start, rather than later on down the road after they've already committed however many murders.
That's interesting stuff. What, if anything, do you think can be gained from knowing about their psychology in terms of training to stop them? And I don't mean
wow.
Right, and I don't mean training to stop them from ever committing the act. I mean from a tactics, TTPs, and the standpoint of actually deciding how to go about fighting and combating these people. Is there something in their psychology? I mean, are these the types of people who are likely to put up a resistance? Are these the types of people that, and I mean, I think we've seen this pattern, but I'd like to hear it from you, where the minute they meet any kind of resistance, they automatically take their own life or they give up? Is there something in their psychology that could help us train to better deal with them in reality, in the real world, when they really make a poor decision and we have to stop it now? Is there anything like?
You actually bring up a very, really great question, and that's one of the questions that is intriguing enough to say that I honestly don't know, because of the outcome that happens, with people like your Adam Lanzas, who unfortunately took those lives at Newtown. We know that beforehand that he had a type of Asperger's, and we know that his mom and him and his brother would go to the shooting range. That's what he enjoyed doing, was going to the shooting range. Look what happened there. He enjoyed it. He had the combination, to the safe. He ended up taking his mother's life before taking the guns and turning them on 26 individuals. I believe that's right, 26 individuals in Newtown, and then taking his own life. So it's hard to look at when, I mean, you can pinpoint, their illnesses and things like that beforehand, like we did with Adam Lanza and things like that. But if you have a person like the boy that went to Stoneman Douglas in Florida 2 years ago, I mean, unless there's some kind of backstory there, I mean, you really don't know how to combat it with a mental health, kind of way without knowing more about it. And unfortunately, I don't. I will continue gradually getting there, and it's something of interest for me. But for a boy who they called on, to the FBI all those times, and the FBI didn't do anything about it. I mean, there was something there, and there was something that wasn't done. So it was tried to be prevented, but unfortunately, it wasn't.
Yeah, I guess what I'm wondering is, like, okay, so if you're in a response to an active shooter, if you find yourself in that situation, I wonder if there's any psychological cues that we could take from knowing their previous, the previous actions of these types of people. Are these the type of people who are going to stop with resistance when told to? Are these the type of people law enforcement are going to be able to engage with and negotiate with? Are these the type of people that are likely to surrender? Or do I have one choice? And
so Kit, let's shift gears here a little bit, and let's see if we can draw some parallels. Because I see what you're trying to ask. So, Cory, if we take a look at suicides, right?
Mm-hmm.
Suicidal people, typically speaking, it is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I have rudimentarily studied psychology, right? So when you're dealing with people who are suicidal, you're typically dealing with a backstory, if you will, or a history of depression, right?
Generally, yeah.
Severe anxiety, right? You're not seeing a whole lot of anger management issues, right? Generally speaking.
With suicidal.
Right. So if we look at people who are typically suicidal, if it comes to that point where, take the stereotypical man on a ledge, or the person, that is maybe it's a hostage style situation where they want to take, the life of a loved one along with them, and they're just angry and upset. These are typically people that, at least when you see and hear about and read the transcripts of the negotiation process between law enforcement and those individuals, they can typically be reasoned with. They're not beyond the realm of reasonable thought and being shown maybe it's a little bit of compassion, like, hey man, or hey ma'am, it's not worth it. There are people that love you, so on and so forth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are there similar circumstances that might apply to people that fall under the category of a potential mass shooter? Can they be reasoned with, or is it almost too late for people like that?
It's still a very good question. I feel like it really depends on the person and what they're going and what they have. Kind of like I was kind of like what I was talking about. It really depends on what exactly it is that they're dealing with and that they're experiencing with. Kind of like someone that's suicidal and things like that. So it generally revolves around what exactly it is that the person has that we can work with. So that would be great for forensic psychology as well. Studying the minds of potential criminals and things like that. That's another realm to go in, definitely with forensics. But I feel like it would almost have to be, a case by case basis, I guess, like anything else. Everybody's going to be different. You could have somebody that's been bullied, You have somebody like Adam Lanza who had Asperger's, and things like that. So it's going to be, case by case, person by person.
So that being the truth, which I suspected that it was, we certainly as civilian defenders and even guys in the LE realm, short of having a U, which maybe you'll be that guy someday, right? If you get a criminal justice background and a psychology background, you'd make a great negotiator, right?
I would hope.
It would make sense. So short of having somebody like you with us or around us, my only option is to solve the problem physically. Me, Johnny Joe, citizen, if the nutbag busts into the back of the movie theater or the front of the movie theater by the screen, me hitting him with 1,000 lumens and yelling, "Hey, what are you trying to do here?" is probably, entirely useless.
Yeah.
Right.
At least the normal thinking, yes.
Right. So in that case, where I'm going is I'm trying to tie this to conventional defensive training doctrine.
No, I get it.
So conventionally, defensive training doctrine, PID, issue commands, ask, tell, make, shoot till they stop, right? Please don't do that anymore. Sir, don't do that anymore. Now I'm going to make you not do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We need to skip those steps, essentially, because we're already dealing with somebody who's outside of the normal realm of thought. I would advocate, quite honestly, that in many situations when lethal force is present, we need to skip those steps anyway, because we're not crisis negotiators. We're salespeople or IT contractors or whatever, right? We're not there to apprehend somebody, but there is a conventional mode of defensive teaching where there are still celebrity gun trainers on the internet professing to folks that they should first challenge and try to reason with their attacker before they finish the fight. And I just can't, especially in the scenario we're talking about. Man, that scares the hell out of me.
Right? It really does. I mean, first of all, nobody ever wants to take a life unless they absolutely have to. Like, it's a must. Then again, you could have just your average Joe that has, come out of a bar that's been drinking, and it be the same thing, and be like, well, I'm trying to figure out from me to him, 25 feet away, is this guy mentally sound? Is he depressed? Is he suicidal? Does he have this? Does he have that? And then, people, you just don't know whether they've taken anything, they've drank anything. You don't know. So everything is, like I said, it seems like a case by case basis, just like any time you come into contact with somebody. It's always going to be face to face generally.
So let's break something down real quick. So if I recall correctly, and I may be inaccurate in this, but I want to say the FBI, but we'll just call it a government agency, has deemed the definition of a mass shooting as being what, 4 or more people.
I feel like that's right. I think I said a while ago it was like 3 or more.
Yeah, 3 or more, so 4 or more.
I know it's somewhere around there.
So we'll call it, let's just say for the sake of argument, 3 or more. Is there a difference in your opinion between somebody who ends up killing 3 or 4 people and somebody who goes in and tries to kill 50?
That's
a hellishly good question, TJ.
That is a really good question. I mean, you can see people like the thing that was going around, was it last year or a couple years ago, whenever they first started talking about the gun bans and stuff like that. I believe it was after Stoneman Douglas. They talked about banning weapons, and then they had the thing going around on YouTube and social media about the knife attacks in, was it Japan or China or something?
China.
That killed a bunch of people.
Yeah, 21 killed, I think, was the number.
Yeah, and however many wounded. I mean, you can go anywhere from a mass shooting to a mass stabbing to whatever. As far as putting a number on it, I mean, I honestly don't know what the right answer would be. We've seen in the last year with the shooting over in New Zealand, what did New Zealand do? New Zealand didn't release the name. New Zealand didn't give the guy any type of fame or anything over media use at all. No, we don't know anything about that individual. They released no information. They didn't give him his 5 minutes of fame like they do here. So that person isn't spread around all over the place. And it doesn't put anything and generate anything else into anybody else's mind to do something like that. So putting a number on things, I mean, it could, everything has sort of a ripple effect, whether it be positive or whether it be negative. In that case, with mass media, it almost seems like it would be a negative effect as well as you putting a number on it, because then, like I mentioned a little bit ago, we have that leaderboard kind of mentality, it seems, with some of the motivation. This person killed 21 people. I want to kill 25. And you put that out there in the media waves, it might trigger somebody to maybe think that. So,
yeah, so it's the celebrity that the media, be it intentional or unintentional, we could have a whole nother debate on media influence on public perception and whether it's good or bad.
Exactly.
Right? But
and in that case, it looks bad.
Right. But, when you start to add celebrity to everything and popularity to it, albeit perceived and incorrect popularity, but popularity nonetheless, you really come to a pretty tough spot. So I would even be curious to see if further refinement doesn't need to be made to that definition. Because if I sit here and think about all the instances where, let's just say 3 to 5 people have been, murdered, I could think of various scenarios that weren't intended to be quote unquote mass shootings, right? Guy gets drunk at a party and starts a fight. Guy who he's fighting with has 4 or 5 buddies that jump in. The guy who started the fight pulls a gun and kills 5 people, right? He didn't go to that party with the intent to murder, 5 or more people. It's just the nature of the scenario, right? You have domestic violence issues where, the abusive spouse comes in and kills the whole family, children included, right? That's at least 4 people in most cases. So I would say that by assigning that arguably arbitrary number to the definition of mass shootings is actually making it more difficult on people in the psychological community, such as yourself, to properly triage and identify and then properly research these people, because it's setting the wrong frame of mind.
Yeah.
You're trying to identify and break down the psychological profile and backstory of someone who's killed 50 plus people or something, let's just say even 15 or 20, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the meantime, they're throwing in all these extra numbers for people that don't apply to that psychological profile at all.
Yep.
Is anybody really going to worry about the backstory, or, is anyone going to go looking for a manifesto for somebody that killed 5 people at a party, or an angry spouse, or a crazy spouse who has, just slaughtered his or her whole family? I think it's just going to make it worse. You got to be able to separate the chaff from the wheat, man.
I mean, it's exactly like what you're saying. I mean, you have a man and a woman and their kids, and he kills his wife and his 2 kids, and then he turns the gun on himself. Triple murder, suicide.
But also mass shooting.
But would you consider that a mass shooting?
Well, if you go by the definition currently assigned to it, then yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, the definition itself could probably use a lot of adjustment, as well as what we're defining and looking at. Depending upon the number. I mean, the number is the biggest thing here. I mean, can you consider, a shooting in a gas station that leaves 3 people dead, technically a mass shooting? There wasn't but 3 people that were killed, or however many people wounded. But then you go to a place like Las Vegas with the concert shooting, that has hundreds of wounded and however many people that were killed, and that's definitely a mass shooting. I mean, we can consider that a mass shooting for sure. But a little 3-person, killed in a gas station armed robbery, I don't know if I would consider that a mass shooting because there wasn't mass public there. So there's not, because then you have to look at, well, how many people were actually there in the setting itself? Because you when you think mass, you're thinking a mass of people, kind of like when you go to church, or like a Catholic church, you have mass on Sundays. Mass is the number of people that are there. So if you have the 3 killings, I don't generally think that I would classify that as a mass shooting.
Well, and let's just even look at it, just to your point, words mean things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if, let's just use your scenario of a gas station robbery gone wrong, guy kills the clerk behind, there's hardly anybody in the gas station, right? Guy pulls a gun, kills the clerk, kills the stock boy, then drives down the highway, car wrecks out, gets out, carjacks another person for another getaway vehicle, kills them in the process. There's your 3.
Mm-hmm.
Still a mass shooting by that definition. And there was no mass to begin with. Not even the body count would be considered mass in that case. So and completely unrelated events, truth be told. So it's a sticky situation, man. So I'll kick this back over to Kent here in a second. But one last question I would have for you is, as you've been studying this and as you continue to study this, what is it that you hope for, if anything, preconceived hopes, right? What is it that you would hope that the gun community at large and even society at large could gain through the psychological study of real mass shooters? I'll use the term real mass shooters for, the true, which we can all agree without splitting hairs, are mass shooters, right? So what do you think could be contributed to the psychological community at large and society?
I think, what I was looking at, the motivational factors between, the individual committing the act of the shooting, is probably one of the biggest, because there's not one set of, there's not one specific thing that's like higher on the list, whether it be revenge killing or, retaliation, or, I want the highest score, or I want my 5 minutes of fame. There's not, a set picture. Motivation has changed between, the first mass shootings way back when to now. In just the last 30 years, you can see that motivation has changed, in alliance. But what specifically is that motivation? We really don't know. So it seems like there's a lot of different motivations, but out of those motivations, which ones are more likely to happen the most?
To come full circle on this, if I understand you correctly, you're hoping that by being able to understand and study those motives, that where the call it the storyline of an event has changed over the years and decades and century even, that where we had an understanding of it, 50, 60 years ago,
right?
Gangland related type activity. So like Prohibition era,
right.
All that stuff, to now we can better understand it now and then predict it and start actually having something to study.
Basically, yes.
Okay, fair enough.
So something that gives us a firm level of being able to kind of track and go off of. because now it seems like with new age and new technology and things like that, it's harder. People are playing different kinds of games. People are watching different kinds of videos. People are interacting differently, whether it's social media or face to face or whatever. So motivations have changed throughout the generations, but which ones can we highlight and really focus on that could be the issue here, that could prevent a future shooting.
Awesome. I want to point one quick thing out. There's another type of statistic that we have yet to bring up, and that is the thwarted mass shooting. That's also not in the statistics, right? So, like, if you look at white settlement, for example, the Texas church thing,
okay.
That guy clearly intended to kill a whole church full of people, but was stopped. So he will forever not be the guy that killed 30, 40, 50 people in a church.
Correct.
He will forever be the guy that got dusted by an old rusty firearms guy with a fucking 357 SIG and a 5-second draw or whatever. Like, that will be the truth. And I mean, not to take away from, and I guess we should say this too. We're not minimizing the events where somebody kills 2 or 3 people. That's not what we're doing at all. What we're trying to do is classify a certain subset of our culture and, eliminate them. And I don't mean eliminate them like the Nazis would have, like solve their problems before they ever are problems in the first place. That's what we're actually talking about. So,
right.
So we've spent the first half hour talking about people who would hurt others. And I mean, that could be a 6-hour conversation in and of itself, but let's switch gears to people who might hurt themselves and how we can prevent it. So I know suicide's a touchy topic for you, but it's also a motivating topic. It's changed a lot of your life. So what can we do to better treat and recognize and thwart people who may harm themselves in that way? What could we be doing better with regard to suicide?
One of the things that I know you're a part of, and TJ and like myself, I mean, we know Sarah Albrecht and Joe are Hold My Guns .org there in Philadelphia or Pennsylvania as a whole, and something like that is really good. When I was at SHOT Show and I got a chance to actually meet and talk to Sarah personally, she was showing me her binder of things that people were saying and what she was doing. I mean, we all have some type of mental health issues, problems, whatever that may be. It can be something from a small generalized anxiety, from being nervous about something, and it all relates to good and bad stuff. Kent, you could have had good anxiety the moment your son was born. You had the butterfly feelings in your stomach, that sense of good stress and good anxiety. Or then you could have, a bad anxiety when you're going into a meeting with your boss because you're getting disciplined because you missed something. I mean, you have things like that. But the things that Genevieve and Sarah are working on help prevent people from losing their rights just because they have a mental health issue. Now things like depression and suicidal ideations and tendencies and the suicidal planning, there's things that we have out there that you can look at, warning signs and risk factors that you can look at to be able to help those individuals, if you see something, to really get in touch with them and be like, hey, are you okay? And really start having the conversation. And what Sarah and Genevieve are doing is allowing people that have these kind of issues or that are having these problems to go into a gun store and say, hey, look, I'm not doing okay mentally, and I want to safe check my firearms here while I go and get the help that I need and I'll be back for these at some other time. And I'll keep in communication with you so you know what's going on. So you're not taking away their rights compared to the Constitution or anything like that. So I think it's very useful. So things like that to be in check with an individual and know that they have a place to be able to depend on to store things like that can harm themselves is a very reliable tool and source.
Yeah, it's not easy work. I can tell you that for sure. It's I'm proud to be a part of the organization. It's a lot of effort that everybody puts in. One thing I almost am afraid of, though, if I can be entirely candid, is other than be there for your friend, right? Your hypothetical friend who's going through a rough patch. And we've all been that friend. I've been the friend that was going through the rough time, and I'm thankful that somebody said to me, "Hey, are you okay?" So we've all, to a certain extent, been there. Now, not all of us thought about ending our lives, but certainly, people had some tough talks and some tough times. One of the things I'm really afraid of I'm a board member of the organization, so something that scares me, if I can be frank, is you say to that person, your friend, whoever you may talk to, you say, "Hey, are you okay?" And they say no. And I got to be honest with you, I'm not entirely certain that I'm prepared to handle their whatever they may say next.
Mm-hmm.
So from the perspective of a mental health professional, what do you say next? What is the core beyond the? I always hear check on your friends, make sure they're okay. I always hear to stay in touch with the people you love. I always hear all those good platitudes, which I think are largely accurate. But what is step 2? Once somebody admits to you, "Hey, we have a problem here," what's the next correct course of action?
I took a suicide prevention training class a couple years ago, and I think the certification lasts for 2 years. So I'm coming up on 2 years, and I think I need to do a renewal. But it's called Question, Persuade, Refer. It's called QPR training. So first, when something like that happens, you want to question the individual based upon this training. So you're questioning, "Hey, are you okay?" Okay, so tell me a little bit about that. Do you have a plan? Things like that. Then you move into the persuade. You want to persuade them, to come with you, to really persuade them not to do it, and go forth with anything if they have a plan. And then you want to refer them to somebody. Be able to use yourself as a means to take them there if you have to. Especially if it's something that's really serious as suicide, and if they have a plan, if they're talking about it, it's very serious. So I use that method because that's what I was trained with. Again, it's always good to stay up front on your certifications and your training techniques and things like that. So being able to question the individual about what's going on, being able to persuade them, into a different kind of thinking, and then refer them to getting help is how I look at that.
So the persuade part of that is the one that troubles me. I mean, what are there things that are out of bounds to say? Is there a possibility that I might try to help and make it worse? So that I guess my point is I know enough to know what I don't know. And in that scenario, from the heart, it's a different conversation too. Like, and this is hurtful to even think of, but knowing a person for a while, like them, if this were TJ, I think I know exactly what the hell I would say, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I know what kinds of things I would use to persuade him because I know what matters to him and what is in his heart. and what he thinks about and what he cares about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I won't. That's too sad of a thought to even go further into. But what about the stranger? What about the coworker you don't really know that well? What about the person that is this one of those things where you say, "Hey, man, do you have kids? Tell me about your life. Tell me what kinds of persuasion tactics are you using?"
Yeah, I think Kent, that's a real good point. I think that because that kind of plays into the concern you have about, are you going to say something that's going to make it worse?
Mm-hmm. That's what I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, hey, do you have kids? And that's probably the trigger,
right,
causing them to have that problem. Like, yeah, I'm going through a divorce, and my wife took my kids from me, and I'll never get to see them anymore. That could be one of those situations. So I'm curious to hear this too, Cory. So what I'm sure that certification. Real quick, I want to segue real quick, without getting too far off topic. So you talked about the certification that you have, this QPR training. Is this something that anybody can go do, like CPR training?
Yeah, there are certain, I guess, class schedules. I think probably says it on their website somewhere. I got it done through my college. It was a little evening, hour and a half, 2 hour training class. Over there in the class, you watch a video and you talk about risk factors, warning signs. You go through a whole presentation, and then you start role playing with each other. Basically, one of you is the person that's questioning, persuading, and referring, and the other one is the individual that is needing the help. And then you guys will switch. So you'll pair up, and then you each have the opportunity to do both. So there's all different kinds of training out there. There's one that's Ivy Tech does as well. I can't think of what the name of it is. But there's all different kinds of suicide prevention training modules out there. But QPR is the one that I got certified in. Okay.
So thank you for that. Of course, in the spirit of training, right? We invite, this is something I think everybody should do. If you're willing to go if this is something that is, meaningful to you, certainly something that you want to be more versed in. If you're the type of person that's willing to go get voluntary CPR training, you're probably of the same type of person that would probably do well to go get some type of QPR training or suicide prevention and awareness training. So consult your local resources.
I just sent you the link, TJ. We're doing it.
Yeah, there you go. So
found it already.
Yep, QPRinstitute.com. So Quebec Papa Romeo Institute, no dashes or special characters.com. Head on over to that. We'll put a link in the description of this video as well. But anyway, so back to the question at hand, Cory, as Kent was saying, it's easy when it's a family member, loved one, close friend, whatever, somebody that and you have a thorough understanding of their background and what matters to them. But what do you say to the stranger? That distant coworker that you haven't maybe taken the time to learn about.
One of the things that I've had the fortune of being able to do is talk and be a public speaker at a couple of suicide prevention walks, and I share some really motivational quotes. One of the quotes that I really like comes from Joyce Mayer, or at least that's what I found, and she talks about placing your hand over your chest and feeling that beating inside your chest. That's your heartbeat. It's beating for a reason. There's a purpose for you being here, and that's one of the things that I try to use if I come in contact with an individual that's feeling that way. We're all here for a purpose. What that purpose is, we may not know at that moment, but we're here for a purpose, and we have to see that purpose on through, and that's the kind of things that I like to use to persuade people is the purpose of them being here. The beat of their heart is there, and they're going to be okay.
You when you say Joyce Mayer, do you mean Joyce Mayer, the religious speaker?
I believe so. Yes, Joyce Mayer. Yeah,
for lack of a better word.
I'm pretty sure it's her.
Wow.
That I got that from.
Interesting. So let me paint you, and this is not fair to do to a subject matter expert any more than it's fair to do to a defensive firearms trainer. And the student paints you into a corner in a scenario, and now you have to tell them how to solve it. But since I get to be the student for the change, I'm going to do it anyway. So
you would do this to me.
Let me paint you into a bit of a thing here. Jerry and I, Jerry's not a real person, in case anybody's wondering. Jerry and I have been working together for 6 to 8 months. Jerry works for me. He's in a service truck out on the road doing his job, and I start to notice that his performance is slacking, and he usually makes 12 or 14 appointments a day. He's gotten down in the 7, 6, 5 range. I bring him in as an employer to sit him down and do a quick conference and say, hey, man, is there something going on? What can I do for you? How can I help you? Do you need some more training? Do you need some more help? Am I overworking you? Am I burying you? What, you were top dog and now you're middle of the pack. That's not like you. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And dude breaks down and shares with me that he's thinking about taking his own life. It's happening. Like, he's being serious, and I believe he has the means to do it. So I questioned him. I obviously have gone through the Q. Now the P, the truth of it is I've had the pleasure of working for some great people, and I've had the pleasure of some great people working for me. Mm-hmm. I don't know everything about them all, right? I don't know Jerry. I don't know his wife. I don't know his family. I don't know his life situation, love situation. I don't know his money situation. I know what he makes, clearly, because he's my direct report. But what are the kinds of things that it is safe to assume, or what are some standard operating procedures that are okay for me to use with him to try to persuade him to allow me to get him help? So what's my next step?
If it would be me, I personally would tell him I love him. I mean, I love
not to be cold, everybody. But even it. Oh, okay.
I love everybody, no matter who they are.
Okay.
And I just be like, look, Jerry, I'm really concerned. I've seen this, I've seen that. Be like, I love you and I want you here. And you're needed here. There's nothing that we can't take care of together. You don't have to do this by yourself. And I want you here. I need you here, and I love you. And I'm going to do everything in my power to keep you here. And depending upon, if he has a list, if he's got a plan of doing this, you're definitely going to want to go into that referral stage. With getting any kind of resource that he needs for help, whether that be a mental hospital, anything like that. Generally, a lot of people, or a lot of police departments, they'll come and do a welfare check on individuals. And at that point, if they feel like the person is a harm to themselves or others, they'll generally take them somewhere and do like a psychiatric hold. I think about 48 to 72 hours. In a place, and generally at that point, once you go there, they don't let you out until they let you out. That's not meant to scare anybody. It's not meant to do any of that. It's meant to be there to get you help and to give you the guidance that you need so we can keep you here. And we want you here and we need you here. And that's the kind of things that are in place to be able to do that.
Yeah. So what you just gave me is what I was looking for. And in professional sales, we call that a word track. It's a safe set of assumptions that we can make, where we're using things that we know to be true. So if we make them true, like, hey, I care about you,
Mhm.
Well, if that really clearly, if I didn't care, I wouldn't be sitting the guy down. So that's true, right? We never want to lie to the person in a negotiation or in a sales meeting. And I guess my point was, I'm sitting here going, okay, dude, word track this for me. Teach me how to repeat this correctly. So I care about you. I want you here. I'll do anything in my power to help you. You're valued. All those things are true just because I'm saying they're true and I'm the one that values him and I'm the one that cares, whatever. So I could be the only person in this guy's world who gives a shit. Everybody else could literally have let him down, but the facts are the facts, and I'm still speaking the truth. So that helps.
We could literally be sitting here in New York City, and you could be a regular individual, an original John Doe, Jane Doe, in the middle of New York City, walking down a sidewalk with all those people shoulder to shoulder. And you have one person out of all those people walking back and forth on that busy street, on that busy sidewalk, and you see one individual that has sort of those signs and symptoms of those body languages and things like that you can recognize. And you just have all those people moving back and forth, and not one of them is doing anything. But you can see that, and you can recognize that. You can be the difference in somebody's life by stopping and saying, "Hey, are you okay?" Because if you don't,
there's an entire subsection of the website, the Chive, called RAC, Random Active Kindness. You know, and you'll see all these different stories, and it's great. Cory, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think this is important. Because you're touching on a topic that we don't often discuss here, and that is, don't be a dick. There is enough hatred and vitriol and anger and just malfeasance out there for everybody because of, social media has made us all socially inept and socially retarded, right? I'm more apt to jump down somebody's throat from an opposing viewpoint, political or otherwise, because damn it, somebody was wrong on the internet once, and I had to say something about it, right? So so you have this, and I'll tell you what, if you are ever needing like some motivation for the day, that there's still hope for humanity, those random active kindness posts, like, I'll give you a perfect example. You'll see a picture that somebody will post, is like, I found this on my car. And it's like an envelope with like 20 or 40 bucks in it, $60, pick a number, right? But it's typically like a 20 or more. It'll have a note with it like, hey, you seemed really stressed. I saw you juggling the kids, getting to and from the grocery store. Hope this brightens your day. Go get yourself a coffee, take yourself to the spa, go get a beer if it's a dude or whatever, but whatever, pay it forward in, RAC, Random Active Kindness. Like, you don't owe me shit. You don't know me. I didn't sign a name. But just that little sentiment made it completely changes that person's life.
Exactly.
And just because the person at that moment in time, at least, wasn't a dick.
So I had to laugh because don't be a dick was the principal rule of this weekend's training.
Well, at least the safety rule, right?
Right. Jedi's first safety rule is don't be a dick. So that helps. That was my laughter. Since TJ and I spent a weekend with Scott, we're now using his isms when we talk to each other.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Hard stop. And anyway, so Cory, man, I don't even know if I want to ask you this, but I guess I'm going to. Earlier in the conversation, you alluded to when I have, or in the past. Do you have direct experience dealing with people who are in this situation in their life? Is that part of your training, or your?
It will be moving forward as I get into graduate studies, and learn how to do counseling and therapy and things like that, whether it be with individuals that are normal everyday citizens, whether it be veterans that are transitioning back from the military into being a normal citizen, things of that nature. So graduate school is going to be doing that for me. The classes and the internships that I'll be taking at that point will be focused and driven based upon therapeutic experiences and actually sitting down and doing therapeutic work. Now, with my experiences with my own anxiety and my stepmother, who, like I said a while ago, took her life in 2016, she had 28 years worth of mental health issues. And during one of her attempts, I was actually there and was able to find her and save her life. Me and my wife and my father-in-law at that time back in 2010. And it was a very traumatic experience, an experience that I wish no one would ever have to go through. So I do have personal experiences with this personally, not professionally, and not as of yet, because I'm not in that far with my education yet, but I will be. But personally, I have had those experiences, along with some of the friends that I have that have had issues along those lines.
I'm sorry to hear that. So I won't. Yeah, in that case, I won't ask you. I don't want you to relive your experience with your family.
Oh no, please ask what you need to ask. I'm perfectly comfortable and fine with it.
Yeah, it's that. Sorry for the long pauses, folks. This is difficult conversation. What
it is?
What kinds of things?
Kent, we're getting the robot voice from you, bud. So, Kent, while you troubleshoot that real quick, let's continue on with the QPR conversation. So, I think we've covered the question. We've talked about the persuade. So, Cam, our dear friend, HC494, shout out to him in the chat.
Hey, Cam.
Mentions what the Army uses, right? And this is military-wide for the most part. So, the military uses ACE, right? So, act, care, and escort, right? Very similar. Take action,
right?
Show that you care for the individual, or show care, provide care, whatever that might be, and then escort them, being the parallel to the refer part, right? So in the military, there are crisis centers on every military installation 24/7, right? So you can, no matter the time of day, if my buddy is, contemplating suicide or anything, and I need to get him or her to a professional, to a counselor, or, suicide prevention hotline, whatever the case might be, there are human being resources that I can escort that person to morning, noon, or night. Well, the real world ain't a military installation.
Unfortunately, that is true. Yeah.
We talk about referral, and while it may come to that in certain circumstances, I'm sure, there's a whole lot of people out there that may find themselves in these scenarios that they can't spend a week with this person and move in while they wait for the next available slot for the counselor who's actually accepting new patients. Right? So what are some of the resources available, be it police department, fire department, city hall, the local hair care and tire center? Like, what types of places are available to everyday John and Jane Q citizen that they can refer people to in an immediate situation?
Some of the places that you can talk with are the crisis text line. You can text cnqr to 741-741. You also have the suicide prevention lifeline. But if you're looking for things that are local, like I said a while ago, I mean, wellness checks are something that police departments do. And if they find you or the individual you're calling upon, really, really engaging that they want to hurt themselves, I mean, they will they will escort them to where they need to be, to where they can go and get some help, in a 48 to 72 hour hold. And generally that's going to be like your local emergency room, or your local mental health facility, no matter what that may be. So there are places that you can to get help right away, and most of that, they talk about, dealing with any kind of problems, you always want to call 911 or visit your local emergency room. So that's, if you can't get anybody right away and it's a dire, really medical necessary crisis and intervention like this would be, you want to go to your nearest emergency room or your nearest, local mental health facility. A lot of mental health facilities are 24/7 based, along with, referrals and things like that. They have someone that's willing to take assessments and get you in like that day or that night. Because it is an issue. So it's one of those things that nowadays people are using telemed or something like that. It's where you can do counseling over the computer, face to face with a therapist or a psychologist or something along that nature. But there are different resources out there for people to go and get help with that are relatively easy.
That's certainly helpful. You mentioned that text, CQR is what you can text?
CNQR.
Okay. CN, Charlie, Nancy, Quincy, Romeo.
Yep. To 741-741.
Okay. All right. So back to my my difficult question here that I'm still having trouble even framing.
It's quite all right. I've told this story for 4 years throughout my school career, so it's okay.
In the moment where a person makes this decision, they're gonna take their own life.
Mm-hmm.
What is their? Are they entirely disassociative of the world around them? Are we talking eyes glassed over? Are we talking unable to form coherent sentences? Are we talking no eye contact? Are we talking? I mean, for people that one of the things that when we talk about training to handle something, I like to visualize exactly what I'm going to be dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
in order to be able to work my way through it. I mean, what's there? Are they eerily calm? What sorts of things should we expect from a person who's gone past the planning stage and is in the taking? They are now taking the action we don't want them to take stage. Are there telltale signs, things in that moment? And again, I know I'm talking about an individual experience in your case.
For my stepmom's case, it was, I remember the day vividly. In her first attempt that we actually were able to save her, it was a normal day. She had to work that night. She was a licensed, registered respiratory therapist, and she was going to work that night. And she said, "I'm going to go, take a shower and put my lotion on and take a nap." She went and closed my dad's bedroom door, and it locked. And she was, we thought everything was okay until my dad called me and said, "Hey, she's in there, trying to take her life. Do whatever you have to do to get in there and get her out, and call 911. Start squaring things away." I mean, it seemed like a normal day that day. So I mean, it can go from one spectrum to another. Just like anything else, there's a spectrum with it. And I think what my stepmom wanted to do was to get rid of that pain. It's a pain that, people feel, but they can't express it because not everybody feels that pain. It's a psychological pain that they want to get away from. They want it to stop. And unfortunately, that's how they think that they can get this pain to stop, is no longer being here. And it worked for her. After 28 years, she lost her fight. And we miss her dearly, but we are thankful that that pain is gone and she no longer has to live with that pain. But it's one of those things that's, nobody else knows about that pain other than that individual. So that individual can't necessarily say, this is the kind of pain I'm feeling, because if I tell you I'm having a heart attack, you can list all the symptoms of a heart attack, but this person can only tell you what they're feeling, and there's nothing on there that you can associate with that feeling. And so they just want it to stop.
I understand. For those of us, that those of us who listen to podcasts like this, and you come here expecting jovial gun talk and jokes and whatever the hell, and you might hear this, and you might think to yourself, well, these three particular young men, or guys in their 20s and 30s are more squared away than the average person who likes their guns and likes their freedom and whatever. I will just tell you that while Cory's an exceptional human being, most of us really care at this level. I would say so. I'm proud to know you, and I'm proud to have you be a part of our show and come on here.
Thank you very much.
I just can't imagine the good that you're going to do in your future in preventing or helping so many other people that will unfortunately go through such a thing. Experience is the best teacher sometimes, and I thank God that you've had that experience in a way, because you'll be able to help prevent it in somebody else. So
thank you.
You're uniquely skilled in that way, and it's crazy how gun life and the internet and 6 degrees of separation brings people together. I mean, you and I had never known each other if we wouldn't have been both into guns and shit, right? Like
exactly.
You're out in the Midwest. I'm over here. Well, at the time, heck, I was up in the Northeast. Just something as simple as one of our passions and pastimes and hobbies and rights that we both believe so strongly in, and TJ as well. I mean, I had the pleasure of seeing TJ's family and being in his home this weekend with his kids while we were taking training and stuff. These connections we make like this are so incredible sometimes, and I just find myself in a moment like this being very grateful for what we all have been able to accomplish. So.
Exactly. And one of the things that I want to touch on just briefly is that a lot of the gun related deaths that are with suicide, most suicides are over 50% related with firearms. The female population are the ones that attempt the most, but the male populations are generally the ones that are more successful. And most suicides, like I said, over 50% are done by using a firearm. And some of those things that we even read about in such cases that could be a murder or something along that nature could also be considered, a suicide, and might have been reported wrong. So some of those statistics that came out for I can't remember whether it was 2018 or 2019, that 47,000 plus had taken their lives nationally I mean, that number could possibly be higher, depending on what was recorded during the time of an incident. It could be an overdose. It could be a firearms related death. You just don't know. So that number could actually potentially be higher than what it actually is.
So, and you're right, Cory. And you know what? I'll be honest with everybody that's within earshot of my voice right now. As defenders of the Second Amendment and the people that are the first to jump up and scream that the 60,000 gun deaths per year are by firearm. Well, 2/3 of those are suicides, so you can't count those. Well, damn it, that's still 2/3 of that group that are dead, right? And we, as caring gun owners and champions of our Second Amendment rights, would be remiss if we didn't address those, right? So that's why we're having this conversation. So I'm going to ask the question, Cory, and maybe you've got the answer to this, maybe you don't. But I think it's fair to assume, and I'm going to use that term very carefully. I think it's fair to assume, based on my personal experiences, and as many of my personal experiences are the same as yours in the gun community, is that the vast majority of the gun community is a lot like us. Mm-hmm. We give a shit. Right. Yeah. Despite what the media paints us out to be, or whatever the case might be, we care. Mm-hmm. However, I think the gun community could do more. So, based on your connections and interactions with organizations like Walk the Talk America, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
who have been at every major gun show I've seen. So SHOT Show, NRA show. I wasn't at the Great American Outdoor Show, so I can't say they were set up there, but I'd be willing to bet they were. They weren't. Okay, either way, these guys are all over the place. Mm-hmm. What more can the gun community start doing to step up and acknowledge this problem and start to make sure that we address it as a group? Rather than just, three dudes in their respective basements talking about it on the internet.
Well, I mean, that's a good start. I mean, just three dudes talking about it in their basements is a good place. But Mike and Rob with Walk the Talk, they do some really great things. I know I wasn't able to see Rob talk at SHOT Show, but he did talk at one of the conferences they had there. Which I really wish I could have been able to at least listen to, and I haven't found it yet. But they do some really great stuff. I mean, they're putting, payments with other guys and having the other gun companies like send those out with purchases and things. Being able to have things readily available in gun shops. If it's not, just something talking about it, this is what, you look for if you need help. Here's, some numbers like the suicide prevention line number, the crisis text line and things like that. So I think really getting it out there to not necessarily advertise it, but to destigmatize it in the gun community, because it's a growing issue, and it has been for the last 25 years. I mean, the suicide rates have just went up tremendously, and one of the things is just being proactive. There are places that do suicide prevention rallies just like we do Second Amendment rallies. And things like that, so being able to be at these shows like Mike and Rob with Walk the Talk, and Genevieve and Sarah with Hold My Guns, being proactive and talking to these individuals inside the community, and getting things out there to be able to give information to people is what I think is needed. Just to continue to push information. It doesn't have to be a hard push; it's a subtle push. You just do it gradually, and it takes off. And so, I think it's a good start.
I'll go one step further with you, Cory. I think it needs to be advertised. And I'll give you a perfect example. You ever been to a casino?
Yeah.
Okay. What is on every placard on every ATM machine in every casino?
Oh, an advertisement. Yeah.
For gambling addiction.
Yep.
Do you or someone you know has a problem with gambling as they're pulling hundreds out of the ATM, right? I would
That's
love
true.
for nothing more than for somebody, because I'm going to share a story with you guys here in a second that you didn't know about me, but I would love for nothing more than that one person who might be contemplating suicide, hurting themselves or others, right? Because we can't forget the first half of this conversation where we did talk about the mass shooters and murders in the world, right?
Exactly.
To see right on top of that counter a brochure for crisis prevention, suicide prevention, whatever the case might be, displayed right there loud and proud for everyone to see it, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
because I think it's going to be
that.
Personally, I think it's going to have to be a grassroots thing. We can't rely on the gun industry to champion stuff like this. That's why we have such great organizations like Walk the Talk America and Hold My Guns. These are all started by everyday citizens like us that care, right? So,
can I? I'm sorry. Let me help you on this a little bit. I before I lose this, I want to stop you real quick. Through my experience with HMG, what I will tell you is that sometimes the gun industry tries to help, but because we are the gun industry, we are denied. So there are situations, and I'm not going to name names or organizations or whatever, where large firearms companies have tried to donate to suicide prevention organizations, and the suicide prevention organizations wouldn't have the conversation because, it had pick your favorite gun company in the brand name, so therefore they weren't willing to discuss it. So there are some, to be fair to the gun industry at large, there are some instances where some things have been tried and failed for that reason, and that's largely unfortunate. And I'm sorry.
I agree.
I'm sorry I cut you off, TJ.
No, that's a very valid point, Ken. I would put the blame solely right there on that quote unquote suicide prevention organization.
Yes.
Right.
Agreed.
While that particular gun company or manufacturer or distributor, whoever it might have been, hell, the NRA, for all I know, trying to contribute to these organizations, and that organization says no, well, then I'm sorry, but I don't think you really care about suicide prevention if that's the case. Right? Leave it completely anonymous. I don't care. We don't need the publicity that you got the money from, Remington. Right? Doesn't matter. Take the money, get some people some help. The hunger, I'll tell you right now, the homeless guy on the street doesn't give a shit where that $20 or his next meal comes from. You know what I mean? So if it truly is that much of a crisis, then that's on that organization and they should be ashamed of themselves. With that being said, the reason that I think that kind of stuff should be advertised, to my point, when I was, a lot younger than I am now, working behind the counter of a gun store, one of the responsibilities we had was if a NICS background check came back as a hold, right? Not a denial and not an approval, but a hold. After a certain amount of time, we were responsible, the clerks were responsible for calling the numbers associated with them, because in many cases, the person who was put on hold, right, soft denied, if you will, said, hey, just hold on to it for me. I'll take this information you gave me. I'll go talk to the background check people and we'll get this issue straightened out. I haven't done anything wrong. I'm not a prohibited person, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. Well, after a certain amount of time passes, we got to knock the dust off of those gun cases with their 4473 stuck under there and follow up. I followed up. There was a shotgun that was back there. I was doing my routine checks. Hey, hey, Joe Bob, have you checked on this? Do you want to come back and get your stuff? Do you want to run your background check again? Have you got, getting a status update? I called one particular individual and a woman answered the phone. And, she was, noticeably upset when she realized who was calling. And I did not know this person from Adam. No idea who it was. Didn't even work with them or sell them or tried to sell them this firearm. But she said, no, this is his daughter. I'm like, okay, ma'am. Well, I can't remember. Obviously, even if I could remember, I'm not going to say the gentleman's name. Is John Q. Citizen available? he has a firearm here on hold that he wanted, that he was put on hold for, and I need to know if he wanted to come get it. She said no. He committed suicide last week with a firearm.
Oh wow!
So we reasonably suspected that he tried to purchase that firearm with the intent of taking his own life. He ultimately, because he got soft denied, he was unable to use that particular implement to do that with. He then borrowed a gun from a friend who had apparently no idea that this guy had problems, and ended up using that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very difficult, especially for like a 20-something-year-old fresh out of the military that hasn't dealt with that yet. So that was an interesting experience. But I mean, that in and of itself, right there, like if that guy could have looked up and seen a brochure that says, "Don't do it, there's hope and people love you," picked up that brochure, who's to say that he wouldn't still be here today?
100% agree.
And I would rather err on the side of being a prick and say, "Oh, well, that's just that's upsetting to some people. That's a sensitive topic to discuss. We don't want that advertisement on our store, on our shelves." Yeah, but I'd rather err on the side of and risk being perceived as an insensitive person from clearly a wrong-minded individual who would think that, and I'd rather have that risk than not take that risk, and then somebody ultimately being successful in taking their life because of it.
Exactly.
Because that wasn't there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah,
I mean, I think that's the perfect way to advertise, is it being like on the shelves at a gun store, like on the counter, right where you're, going for and you're applying for your gun. Or if you purchase it online, you're going to pick it up from an FFL, and you've done everything that you need to do. It comes, in the box with your firearm, something along that lines. I mean, because we all know when you get a firearm, it comes in a case or it comes in a box. You don't just go up to a gun store and they give you the gun and you just walk out with the gun in hand by itself. It comes in a box. So with inside that box, if you had a pamphlet or a brochure or something with any kind of suicide prevention information in there, I mean, that as well would be good as well when shipping a firearm.
Yeah, I mean, because hell, let's just even say, because going back to the original premise, most gun owners actually give a shit, right?
Yeah.
What if that person buying that gun has a family member that might be going through crisis and they don't know how to deal with it?
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying? So
yeah,
we got to equip we got to equip our own people with the knowledge and understanding and the acknowledgement that, hey, okay, sure. So the gun grabbers want to use this statistic against us and our rights. Well, we can't completely ignore that statistic. We can't. If we truly sit here and say we care, we can't ignore that statistic. It's disingenuous. It's disingenuous and irresponsible.
Yeah, and what's really good about the brochures and the pamphlets and the information is it gives you exactly what you need. The majority of the time is it talks about the risk factors. It talks about the warning signs. It talks about what to do. I mean, it gives you the information, whether it's you that's needing it or it's someone else that you can help later on down the road just by having that. So, I mean, it's a vital piece of information that's not only good for yourself, but for the benefit of other people that you may know.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
yeah, this has been one heck of a conversation. Let me take a quick moment, seeing that Sarah is not here, to do a little reverse capitalism for Hold My Guns, because it's not capitalism when it's a charity, right?
That, or it could be Bernie Sanders socialism kind of thing. I don't know.
Oh, you lovable doll! You couldn't go without a joke all night.
I mean, I can throw my Miley Cyrus wrecking ball out there for you too, because we were talking about that the other day. But
we'll pay you not to. Anyway, so holdmyguns.org is where you can go if you want to learn more about the charity that we've mentioned. If you click on donate now, we are currently working to launch in test markets a freedom-based firearm storage solution option for folks that are in some sort of a crisis, or quite frankly, maybe not in a crisis. Maybe they just need to take a break from lethal means, or maybe the in-laws are coming and, they just don't want to have the argument about guns or whatever reason, or there will be kids in the house. God only knows. So for whatever reason, a person feels they need to store a firearm off-site somewhere, Hold My Guns is going to be able to connect an individual with an FFL in their area using already established doctrine from the ATF. And you'll be able to store your firearms off-site and retrieve them at such a time when it is appropriate. So that's holdmyguns.org. Please click donate now. Please email us on that website. Find us in our chats on social media, stuff like that, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and communicate with Hold My Guns. Tell us your stories. Cory brought up the binder that Sarah had put together to take to SHOT Show. I had the pleasure and responsibility at the same time of having that thing in my hands for a while and reading through it. There's some powerful stuff going on here, people. So if you want the opportunity to do some good in the world and help some people out, please consider seeing your way clear to donating, or if nothing else, sharing our organization and helping us tell the story. Every little bit helps, and we've got some great partners working with us. So we'll be operational in some test markets and some partner FFLs coming up this spring. So we're real excited for that, and we're certainly happy for all the support that we've gotten from all of our friends in the industry. And bigger and better is to come in that arena. And Cory, I just can't tell you how enthused both Sarah and Genevieve were after meeting you at SHOT Show, and you were obviously a spark and an inspiration and stuff. So, you're impressing all the right kinds of people with your outlook and the way you approach this stuff. So, my hat's off to you.
They're wonderful people. I mean, I remember the day like it was just last weekend. Hell, who knows? It could have been when TJ called me and told me about Sarah and Hold My Guns. I know it wasn't, but when I met Genevieve, last year at NRA show, I didn't realize that I could connect with other like-minded individuals, at a gun convention that were as well adept with mental health as I am. And so meeting Mike Saldini and Rob Pincus and Genevieve at NRA last year, and being able to grow with them within the health community. And then TJ calling me one weekend and telling me about Sarah and holdmyguns.org, and after checking it out, now I've had the pleasure to meet Sarah at SHOT Show and really get personal with her for a little bit, and with what all she's doing. It's really good to see that you can bridge both communities together with just as sensitive topics as they are. And it doesn't matter the political sides of the spectrum at all. We're together because we want to keep our rights, and we want to better other people as well as ourselves. And being able to get to do that is not only rewarding, but it makes you feel good about doing so as well, and want to continue that path of doing that.
Outstanding, man. Well, Cory, guys, it is about that time. So, Cory, as always, we appreciate having you here. We'll certainly have you back. We'd like to continue this conversation. Can certainly think up some other topics as it pertains to mental health and firearms communities, respectfully. So we'll certainly make sure that we invite you back for those conversations.
Thank you.
But thank you again for being here, buddy.
No
Kent, you got anything to say in closing, man?
Yeah, what a night, right? Hell of a topic. Cory, you represent yourself and those that you studied with in your education very well. I'm proud to know you, and I'm proud to give you a platform. and I'll do anything I can to help you in the future. So thank you so much for you've always been very good at cracking jokes on these things and coming out and being jovial and having fun or whatever. But thanks for letting us into this part of you, and thanks for God forbid anybody that hears the sounds of our voices tonight needs to hear this.
Mm-hmm.
But damn, I mean, hopefully if that is the case and you hear the sounds of our voices, take advantage of some of the stuff that we've just talked about. And I'll speak for myself. Kent at greenmountaindefense.com, 223-322-0584. That's the business contacts. If it really means something that you need to talk to me about this instead of anybody else, fine, go ahead and do that. But I'm just proud to help, and I'm very proud that I've gotten to watch you progress in the last couple of years and how far you've come with this. You've done incredible work, and it's an honor to have you on here, man. Thank you for all your time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, man.
That means a lot to me. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And whatever the pay the bills capitalist shit. I'll let TJ do like the whatever sponsor reads or whatever. But greenmountaindefense.com/training. Get out on the range, and Cory shared his passion tonight. Let me share my passion with you and help you guys get better and protect yourselves. So if you see your way fit to wanting to do that, I stand ready to serve and help you. And also, just real quick, our boy TJ burned it down this weekend on the range at Modern Samurai Projects at Royal Range. So anybody that wants to think the lead slinging ginger is just over here talking a bunch of nonsense on the interwebs, this dude can shoot at a high level. And it was awesome to get to see him learn and get to see him validate all the stuff that he's been doing. So hats off to you, dude. Your performance was outstanding this weekend, and I was really proud to watch you, put it on paper, so to speak. So thanks for indulging me.
Absolutely, man. I've been known to live the pew pew life once in a blue moon. So real quick, just as a reminder, folks, next week Kent and I will be discussing the Modern Samurai Project Red Dot class that we just went through this weekend in more detail. So make sure that you like, share, and subscribe so you can find out more about when we are going to go live with that, and join us in the live chat. Real quick, Sarah from Hold My Guns is actually in chat with us. Cory, she did ask us to tell you that she thinks you are an absolutely wonderful individual, and she truly appreciate all of your work. So special shout out to you from Sarah via the live chat. With that, folks, please feel free to follow each one of us on Instagram. I, of course, am at Leadslinging Ginger, Cory at Corbeard, Kent at Green Mountain Defense. Each of us also have our own YouTube channels. Feel free to like us and follow us over there if you will. If you've got questions, send them to us an email, slingandleadpodcast@gmail.com. We'll be happy to take your questions, maybe talk about those questions on air. Or, hey, if you just need somebody to talk to, like Kent said, he and I both monitor that email account, so somebody will respond to you, and we will do the best we can to help you out, because like I've said before, we actually give a shit. So with that, folks, of course, we'd like to thank Riton Optics. As you know, and as I've mentioned, we are all pro staffers for the Riton Optics manufacturing company based out of Arizona. Fantastic glass, fantastic company, just great people all around. Head on over to ritonoptics.com and check them out. We've got merch. There's links below in the description for that. Find us. Go see our interesting designs on Teespring. We are working on launching more t-shirt designs. While that is slow going, there's still some pretty cool stuff out there. So go check out what we have to offer. The Gunpoint blog or thegunpoint.com. You can find my articles written there. Of course, holdmyguns.org. Go donate $1, $5, $100, whatever you feel that you can give. It will go to a worthy charity. With that, folks, I'm the Lead Slinging Ginger.
Wait.
Oh, wait, what did we forget this time?
Dark Angel Medical code
of course.
BB15. God forbid you need to save a life. Get over there. Let Carrie know in the comments, Sling'N Lead podcast. And Subscribe Star. Follow our link to our Subscribe Star page where you can listen to us yammer more, because that's exactly what you want, more of us. Listen to Cory laughing at that. Oh my God.
Just all up in your ear holes with that stuff. So, I really got to write a script for this. I suck at these closeouts. But with that, folks, once again, find us all at Lead Sling and Ginger, at Green Mountain Defense, at Corebeard. Get out on the range, run your gun, not your mouth. And until we see each other again, God bless you all. Take care of each other and get out and shoot.
Bye, guys.